Coming up, I have an app that's going to scare the willies out of you.
I'm Jason Snell, and I have the brand new iPad Mini.
Who is this man? It's time for iOS Today.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
iOS Today is brought to you by Atlassian. Atlassian software powers the full spectrum of collaboration between IT teams and the rest of your organization. Visit Atlassian.com/IT to see what IT can be by giving their products a try for free. And by Hover. Register a domain name and build your online brand with Hover. Visit hover.com/twit to get 10% off your first purchase of any domain extension for the entire first year. iOS Today time. Megan Maroney is traveling with her daughter, a little mother-daughter spring break trip.
Nice.
I think they went to Key West, and they're just partying like crazy.
Yep.
That's my guess.
That's probably it.
No.
Knowing Megan.
Jason Snell, though, of 6colors.com is here. It's always great to have Jason.
It's great to be here.
Anytime he can come up the peninsula a little way and grab some coffee and bring a little toy bag along with him.
Emphasis, very little.
So the thing we're going to talk about today actually is two things. The new hardware that Apple kind of snuck out 2 weeks ago.
Hardware Week.
And then
Secret Hardware Week.
Secret Hardware Week. And then the announcements that Apple made the following week, last Monday. And because we haven't had really a chance to think about it. We talked about it, but we hadn't had a chance to think about it last week. And Jason, I wanted to get Jason's take on it all as well. So welcome, Jason.
Yeah, it's great to be
How
here.
are things there at 6colors.com?
Keeping me busy. You know, whenever Apple, it's funny, at the end of the year, Apple kind of goes into hibernation. They're doing stuff behind the scenes, but as they go through the holidays, they just kind of like button up the ship. And then 2 weeks ago, they woke up.
The Apple news cycle is like the tides.
It's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
so it's
you
been
go
a busy
through a
couple
long
weeks.
period where all you're talking about is rumors.
Right.
Which I hate.
You're
I
just
don't like
grinding
doing.
on kind of nothing.
Yeah.
And then there's
all at once.
All of a sudden, I've got everything at once.
Well, I got mine. Just the this was so. I guess we should. Where should we start? We should start with what you're not going to get ever. And it was a great April Fool's joke.
Yeah, that's right. Imagine if they had said that AirPower was canceled on April Fool's Day.
Nobody would have believed
but instead,
it.
they did the Friday afternoon news dump.
So AirPower, which Apple announced 2 years ago with the iPhone 10.
Yes.
Remember? They had the 10.
The 10 and the 8 did wireless charging, and they wanted to have a story about an revolutionary Apple wireless charger.
Would have your iPhone on it, would have your Apple Watch on it, and in some odd way that wasn't clear, would have your AirPods on it.
Yep.
And for at least 2 years, they worked on this. We heard rumors earlier this year or maybe late last year that Apple was in manufacture, so it's imminent. And then that's not going to happen at all.
Yeah, there were lots of rumors that they were having quality problems with it. And when we say quality problems, we really do mean like heat and bursting into flames problems.
Something Apple didn't want to release.
It's unclear, yeah, especially after what happened with Samsung and the Galaxy Note. Like, I mean, you should already have those standards, but that was a very good object lesson. I've also heard some speculation, at least, that the challenge became that when they got it working, certifying it.
Yeah.
And there are lots of side effects. There was a really great post, and I actually can't remember where I saw it, that suggested, when you have these things and they're overcharging and putting waves out, you can break hearing aids and you can break pacemakers and stuff like that. So it's possible that they actually got a second take on it that didn't burst into flames working.
They solved that problem.
And then they looked at it for like FCC approval and it's just like, no, it's not going to happen. And they pulled the plug.
John Gruber and Daring Fireball, who said they'd solved the first set of problems and were in manufacture. And then they make that announcement, which no one expected. No rumor had said iPower is not coming out. But Kyle Wiens on iFixit talked to some experts in wireless charging.
That's it. That's it. That's what I was thinking of.
What Apple wanted to do was...
Craig Lloyd. It's Kyle Wiens' site, right? But Craig Lloyd
Craig Lloyd wrote it. Okay. So what really killed it was Apple's ambition, because they wanted to make... And I have a number of wireless Qi-based, which is the standard QI, Qi-based wireless charging pads that have dual coils, And if you have two coils, so the way I guess you should understand how wireless charging works is an inductive coil in the pad, and there's a matching inductive coil in the device. When they're within a very few millimeters of each other, the one will cause electrical generation in the other. They'll, through inductance. But the problem with that is it has to be very carefully placed, right? It has to be right on top of that coil.
Yeah.
So many devices have multiple coils, so you can be a little loosey-goosey with the positioning. Other devices have magnets in it, so that, in fact, the Apple Watches has a magnet.
Right, so they snap right onto
the
right spot.
There's only one place you can put it. Apple thought, wouldn't it be cool if we put in so many coils that you couldn't miss?
Right.
And that's their patent, by the way. And this is what the article at iFixit is based on, is their patent. In fact, the patent had fewer coils than it's believed they were trying to put in. But the problem, as a number of radio experts pointed out, is when you have all these coils overlapping, they create standing waves with excess power that can burst out and literally stop a pacemaker, short-circuit hearing aids. Bad. It's not a good thing, and I guess the FCC wouldn't approve something like that.
And I'm sure Apple could make a charger that was even smarter, that was like doing sensing and found out where you were on the pad and then only turned on that coil or something like that. But the more engineering you put into it, the more expensive it is. And this was already going to be
$90 or something, right?
I don't think they ever set a price. I think we all assumed it would be like, it's Apple. Always round up and then add $50. So at some point you just got to pull the plug, right? And say we can't do it.
The market's replete with Qi chargers, so it's not like people are going to suffer for lack of an iPower.
Always meant to be the typical AirPower, the typical thing that Apple does, where they have an Apple branded thing that they want to sell you in the store. And yes, you could get a third-party one that's cheaper, but you're right here in the Apple store buying this. Throw it in. It's from Apple. Apple's going to support it. And it was a way to work with the iPhone 10 and the iPhone 8 to do this really nice at Christmas time of 2017.
Wouldn't that have been
nice? And, it fell apart. And for me, the big story is not, it is kind of irrelevant. There are Qi chargers out there. It's fine.
And in fact, you could praise Apple for not putting out a bad product, right?
Sure. I think the problem is, why did they have the confidence to pre-announce that product? Something went wrong somewhere where this product was not ready, and it turns out it was really not ready, but they had the confidence to pre-announce it. So that's, if I'm Apple, internally, there's a great lesson. I hope Apple University is working on a seminar for their internal training about what went wrong here, because that's a good lesson to learn about how not to announce a product, how not to communicate that your product is ready when it's not.
I don't think Apple's learned this lesson. Apple was very disciplined for a long time. In fact, I can only remember a couple of products that they announced more than a few weeks ahead of time. One was the first iPhone.
It's generally the first model where because there's that Osborne effect. You don't want to replace, stop the people buying your current
And the first
product.
iPhone they announced in January, came out in June, but that was also because
like that.
They wanted to get FCC approval, but they didn't want, once it goes into that process, it's public, so they didn't want to tip their hands. So they said, okay, we're going to announce it, then go in for FCC approval, and then ship some months later. So that's understandable with the first product, and maybe that's what they were thinking with AirPower. But they've done it now with the Mac Pro, which we're waiting for. They talked about that a year and a half ago.
Although you could argue that was damage control, right? That everybody was wondering where it is, and they finally were like, look, we know.
You could also argue they're saying, please don't buy that other guy's product because, honest, we're going to have one.
True.
The announcements that they made on Monday, all but one aren't available sometime down the road.
Yeah, I think that's maybe a little bit of a different story, because that last Monday's announcements were all about services. So I think they were trying to tell a coherent story about all the services that they're launching, even though they're launching at different times and have different things. They wanted to tell that story at once, and they didn't want to tell it while they were talking about the iPhone, because that iPhone event, nobody cares about anything but the iPhone in September when they announced that. So they wanted to get this out of the way before their developer conference, tell the story to Wall Street, let all those people who've made the Hollywood deals with them be able to admit that they're working with Apple, because I think there's been a lot of frustration in Hollywood. Everybody in Hollywood knows this is happening, but they haven't been able to say. They don't know where they're working. I think that, as weird as it is, I think that, those are personal relationships with stars, and I think they were frustrated that they couldn't say, yes, it's Apple TV Plus. That's what it's called. It's coming out this fall. And now they can do that. And the Wall Street people just love to hear that Apple's getting into services because that's where all their revenue growth is coming from.
to be fair, that's how Hollywood does it. They announce they're going to make a movie. They make the movie. They announce it's going to be out.
They set the release date 4 years in advance and all of that.
So in that respect, I guess that's okay. They did push off all the hardware stuff to the secret release the week before.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
So let's talk about that. I have in my hand unopened because I have great impulse control.
That's impressive.
And because I already have 2 other AirPods.
Yeah, sure.
But this was clearly going to be the companion product for the AirPower.
Yeah, in fact, the rumors are that they redesigned it, and one of the reasons it shipped a little bit later is they redesigned it to be a generic Qi charging case because the AirPower is no more. But regardless, I think it's pretty great. I ordered mine with, I got a new set because mine are kind of long in the tooth now, although my daughter immediately grabbed my old pair of AirPods and ran away with them. But I like the wireless charging case, which you can also get for old AirPods, by the way. You can actually go buy. They're the same
shape.
Be
is sold separately.
So you can buy the charging case that uses the Qi and then just lay it down on the same charger you use for any other inductive, phone, basically, and it'll charge itself.
I got the engraved model. It says, keep your hands off.
Yeah,
these are mine.
Not your AirPods.
So if you, on the face of it, the only thing that's different is there's a little charging light.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But otherwise, now, are these going to be, actually, let's turn on let's see how quickly this pairs. I love how they did this. And Samsung does too, because they copied it exactly. Oh, I have to sit in front of it here. All right. Samsung does exactly the same thing with their pods that come with the Galaxy S10. So let me do that again and see if this... Yeah, there we go. Connect. And...
That's it.
Now, here's, by the way, an interesting point. Apple's always shipped these products with at least 50% battery. That's going to change. The new laws prohibit companies from shipping with battery juice in the lithium-ion batteries for safety. So enjoy it while you got it. This one does come 77% charged, 60% in the case.
Yeah, and otherwise they're essentially indistinguishable
do they sound
from
the same?
old AirPods. I think they do. People say that they sound better, but I think that's I reinstalled my OS and it feels snappier kind of effect. I think maybe it's the effect of their earwax getting in their old AirPods more than it is that the new AirPods are different in that way. But they do have the trigger word, hello.
You could talk to Shlomo on this?
Hello, Shlomo.
Hello, Shlomo.
Without any hardware. You can just say it, and it will trigger, which is a new feature.
So I don't have to...
you don't have to double tap your side of your ear. And in addition to that, it's got a new chip that they're calling the H1 for headphones, which there's a rumor that Apple's also going to do some over-ear headphones that are Apple branded, and presumably it'll go into a bunch of Beats headphones as well. The previous generation used the same chip that's in the Apple Watch, but this is a new headphone-specific chip. And these things are like a miracle of miniaturization, right? Like there's a battery and a processor and a microphone, and it's all in these little tiny stems.
That is one of the complaints iFixit and others make, is that these are basically not recyclable. You can't replace the battery.
But in reality, they wouldn't exist if they weren't as compact
they have
as
to
they
be
are.
this small.
That's the truth of it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the new chip, they say, is actually much faster at connecting to devices and switching between devices. So if you're somebody who uses AirPods on an iPad and an iPhone and a Mac, and you're moving between them, it should connect much faster
let's try
when you
this.
switch.
Let's turn on my... let's get to the home screen. So what happens if... I've never tried this. They're both open. Does it pop up on both of them? It pops up on neither of them. It says, I don't know what to do. You decide.
Oh, there
it is. Now they're on the iPhone, but not the...
I think because you already connected.
It's already
them.
paired there. But if I were to... I've always wondered this. Now, how would I get the sound to come out of the iPad now that it sees it on the iPhone? I have to choose it manually.
Yeah, you can use Control Center to do that if you want to. Or if I think if your iPad is awake and your iPhone is asleep, it will figure it out. Believe it or not. The Mac is not quite as savvy. I think the Mac, you have to go to the sound settings and say, please use my AirPods.
That's great. I have to say, they couldn't make this more easy. So it is a new... chip in here. They touted this with the AirPods 1, that this had this special Bluetooth pairing system and a new chip. But this is a new version of that chip.
A new chip, yeah. So it acts the same, but it is apparently switches between devices a lot faster.
Okay.
And I would imagine they've tried to make battery improvements as well. Who knows? I'm sure iFixit is sawing them apart and has already posted a whole thing about it. But they're not a revolutionary change to the AirPods. They really are almost, you could almost consider them an in-stream kind of update where they upgraded some of the features, but they're functionally identical. There are rumors that Apple is working on a true new generation of AirPods. These aren't those. These are just a little bit better. And if you've already got a set and your battery is good,
no reason to
you don't need to update, unless you've got a person in your house who really wants AirPods and you can
hand-me-downs.
That set down.
Hand-me-downs.
And it's nice. The Hey Shlomo feature is nice because you can already set the taps on the left and right ear to be different commands. And this frees up one, if you were using one of them to trigger the voice assistant, now you can use that for something else. You can use that for next track or previous, skip back, whatever you want.
Oh, nice. And of course, you can use her commands to do that as well. You can say that in voice.
Exactly. If you want to do totally voice control. I always have a problem when I'm out on the bike path and I'm it's more like I'm a crazy person who's talking to the air.
Oh, we're used to that now, Jason.
Next track, right? So I don't like to do that.
Hey, Shlomo, next track. Next.
People are getting out of the way.
Quiet.
Who is
it's
this
worse
person?
when you say volume down. They think you're talking to them. They also announced the return. We're hallelujah of the iPad Mini.
Yeah. Here it is.
Completely same design, except the guts are now A12.
Yeah, in fact, all of the iPad Mini 4, which was the previous model, accessories work on it.
Oh, that's funny.
It is exactly the same.
Actually, John, we have an iPad Mini. That's what we use at our Envoy station. Could you run in and get that? That's when people come into the studio. Our sponsor Envoy is the sign-in. Have you used this? Can I turn it on?
I have, but I wonder if its battery died.
Maybe it died. And you got the smart case.
Yeah, it does not come with a smart keyboard like an iPad Pro.
They could. It'd just be a little teensy-weensy
So
one.
people do make little tiny iPad mini cases. Now, what I prefer, if you want to write on this, is to bring a Bluetooth keyboard with you. That's, I think, the best way to do it.
Yeah,
but
and then it's full size.
There are lots of, because this was the iPad Mini 4 shape and it hasn't changed, all of those accessories still work. They're all out there. They've been made. You can get good deals on them because they kind of were, I imagine the prices are going back up now, but it was basically accessories for a dead product and nobody cared. But now they're available. And even though it looks the same on the outside, it's got a modern processor in it. It's got the A12 Bionic processor. Yeah. It's got the one that I've got there is the cellular model.
That's why that extra
You can really spec it up if you want to. But it has support for the Apple Pencil. Now it's the original Apple Pencil. Not the Apple Pencil 2, the magnetic one. Right. And that's mostly a function of the fact that the shape is the same. There's no place to put it magnetically on the side because it's got this curved side like all the old ones do. But it will work with Apple Pencil, which means if you want to have a little sketchbook, little notepad that you take with you, you can get an Apple Pencil or Logitech's little crayon.
Yeah, that was kind of a nice revelation.
Yeah, all currently sold iPads will use the Logitech crayon. Other side, I think.
Really? Oh, I'm looking for a smart connector. There's my mistake.
And there is no smart connector.
There is no smart
But there is Apple Pencil support and Logitech Crayon. Nice. Logitech's cheaper, not pressure-sensitive stylus actually works on the iPad Pros with a software update.
Now, why did you buy this? Because you've got other iPads. I see you have an iPad Pro.
That's my review unit, so I didn't buy that. Okay. Apple provided that to me, and they will want it back.
Okay.
But I have heard from people. Yeah, I have friends who have big iPad Pros who say they bought that and they can't believe they have two iPads now.
Yeah.
But you forget because we ignored it for so long because it was old and hadn't been updated and seemed abandoned.
I always loved the Mini.
But it's so good in terms of size. If you I love the Kindle, but if you want to read. The iPad, you can read newspaper apps.
Well,
and
it's
Apple
kind of
News,
well suited to News Plus, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. And you can get Kindle app on there, and you can read comics on there with Comixology. And it is very small. You can slip it into a large. I think Andy Anaka always said, he has a coat pocket that will fit that.
He wears jackets, and I do too, and they fit perfectly in a jacket pocket.
I know a lot of women who love putting it in their purse because it fits. It's not too heavy. And as I was saying, if you do want to write, get a Bluetooth keyboard and just carry it with you. There are lots of nice.
And that would be a normal full-size keyboard, which would be the advantage.
Which I think is better than trying to fit it on a super tiny that's just the width of the iPad.
And you can get, and Andy, in fact, uses folding Bluetooth keyboards that are compact. There
are lots of them. There are little silicone ones that you can get. And then there's good Bluetooth. We may even talk about some Bluetooth keyboards later. But
yes,
it's great. It is a modern iPad. one of the nice things about it is it's no longer the cheapest iPad. That's the 6th generation iPad. So if you buy it, you're buying it not because it's cheap, but because you want it to be small.
Right.
It's got, and just like the old iPad mini, it's got the same resolution as the 9.7-inch iPad. All those pixels are just smaller and crammed into a smaller space.
That means it looks
so
better.
you got to have good eyes.
Super Retina.
You got to have good eyes. But if you do have good eyes, it is so light and small, and it's really nice. And if you don't have good eyes, just crank up the text size. It's fine.
You can't make it bigger.
Yeah, there's a system-wide text setting,
Right.
and you just make that a little bit bigger, and then everything looks great.
I was complaining on Sunday about Apple News cutting off all of my headlines with ellipsis. And somebody said, well, that's because you've made the text size bigger.
Yes.
If you make it normal, they fit. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, okay.
It's your own fault.
Never mind. I'm just old. So the new hardware products, but they also upgraded older hardware products. The iMacs have faster processors.
Right.
And you can get, if you want, 256 gigs of RAM in the iMac Pro.
Right. So I have
Wow.
at home right now, I'm testing out the top of the line of the new iMacs, which is a 9th generation i9 processor, and it's pretty fast, right? Like the iMac's pretty fast. It's still the old design, the old iMac design. They haven't changed that. It's not an iMac Pro, but they did that too. So there was some Mac news amid all the iOS news.
The i9 processor, which I got in my MacBook Pro, is nice because what is it, 6-core, 8-core?
I think the one on the iMac
cores.
is 8-core.
Yeah, that's a lot of power. Of course, a lot of heat too.
And these are the first 9th generation
better
Intel
suited in a
chips
desktop.
that
Yeah,
Apple's
these
put
are
on the
good.
Mac.
These are good chips. Cool.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on.
Lots of ways to spend your money if you are so inclined.
But if you're holding out for, I've heard from a lot of people who are holding out for a new iPad mini, and that's the exciting thing, right? Is like it's just a modern iPad. There's no compromise really. You do have to use the older pencil, but like you can use the pencil with an iPad mini for the first time. That's pretty great.
Yeah. And probably in June, if there's going to be a MacBook update, because we have heard rumors it'd be a 15-inch MacBook with smaller bezels, so the screen would be almost 16 inches. If we see that, that'd be at the developers conference.
The funny thing about the developer conference is ultimately it is sort of primarily about software.
But they often announce laptops.
So you can't guarantee hardware,
Right.
but all the app developers use Macs.
Right.
They mostly use laptops.
Right.
And pro laptops especially, they care about the most.
Right.
So Apple loves using it as a platform to do pro laptops. Wouldn't be surprised if they also mention that Mac Pro again. So we'll see.
Don't hold your breath.
They'll mention it, and they'll say, and you'll see more on December 31st.
Yeah, they never said next. They never said 2019.
No, they did. They did finally say
next year?
2019.
Okay,
they did finally say that it's going to come out in 2019. But I'll remind you that when the iMac Pro shipped in 2017, it shipped in late December.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I know because I bought it.
It was a Christmas present.
Yeah,
me
that
too.
was really useful. All right, so there's all the new hardware.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the new services. And I think people were saying, and I have to agree, the reason this event is a big deal is because it's Apple announcing, as they had really at their quarterly analyst call and their new way of recording profit, that they're not going to be worried about hardware sales as much as they are about revenue per customer. And in particular, the growth there will happen through these services. They want us to pay them for more stuff.
Yeah, this is the problem with the way that Apple's a public company, and the problem the way that Wall Street views companies is they want growth. They always want to see growth. And Apple, what that means is if the iPhone sales basically are flat, it doesn't even mean that they're going down. It just means they're not growing anymore. Apple could have this sustainable, enormous business that's one of the most profitable businesses in the world. Right.
Can't Wall Street just live with that?
Well, I mean, this is like with Facebook.
You have to be a $2 trillion company.
And so the only options are find more people, and they've sort of plumbed the smartphone market. It's like Facebook, right? Like they would need to find another planet to grow their user base. So instead, it's can you get more money out of the people?
Existing customer base.
And Apple for the last, it's actually almost 5 years now since they said, hey, we made a new line. It's the services line. You will see our revenue growing, and it has grown every single quarter.
Quite a bit, 33% last year.
It is a massive part of their business. Yeah. Apple, we think about like Steve Jobs' Apple. Apple is not even remotely the size that it was when Steve Jobs was running Apple. This is a very different company. All bigger. Of these businesses, like the Mac business that we think of as so small, that's an enormous business on its own.
Right.
iMac, my understanding is that they sell billions of dollars of iMacs every
That's
year.
amazing.
So every part of Apple's business is enormous. The services business is enormous,
Right.
but it is kind of on the back of the iPhone and the iPad and the Mac a little bit. But that's where they can grow, and that's what they're thinking. I think some of it is, yes, we want to charge you more and we want to put more things on your bill. I think other parts of it are, we would like to take part of your bill that you're paying someone else and have you pay it to us instead for the
It's not
same
going to cost you any
for
more.
the same thing.
But you're going to give it to us this
And
time.
you know, and we'll be able to make it more convenient because you're already in our ecosystem.
It's the ecosystem
That's the
play.
argument that they're making.
And that's the really strong argument that Apple has, stronger probably than any other company in the tech business, that everything works better if you just use Apple stuff.
Yeah, and because of their business model, because a lot of people make it about their ideology, but because of their business model, they are focused on privacy and security in a way that some of their competitors really can't be because of the way their business models work. And if you watch that event last week, every single service they mentioned, there were at least a few lines about security and privacy.
Yes.
So that's part of their argument in a lot of these products is, we're anonymizing the data, we're not tracking your clicks, people don't know who is subscribing. People, Apple doesn't use this for anything. And so that's part of their argument too, is if you do come into their ecosystem, one of the things that you're getting is their promise that they're not going to track you and that your actions are private. And, that's not going to be for everyone, but I think it's smart of them to lean into it because that's what they are kind of all about right now.
Well, the people it's not for are the content creators who have pushed back the magazines, the newspapers, the TV channels, the networks, the over-the-top channels like HBO. They all say, but wait, you're taking too much of our revenue and you're keeping that information about your customers to yourself.
So most of the TV providers seem to be on board with what Apple's doing. Apple's doing something that's not revolutionary. It is what Amazon did last year. It's a really smart thing.
It's just another
called channels, where they're reselling other streaming services inside their app. I get a few services inside Amazon Prime that way.
Yes.
And it's super convenient. So that's good, and I think it's not really any different than running your own app. It's going to be a pretty decent deal for them, and they're going to be integrated right into Apple's TV service as a peer. You'll be able to get HBO or CBS All Access or Acorn or BritBox in there.
Right.
So that's all good. On the Apple News Plus side, though, a lot of the publishers are saying, the rumor is that it's a 50% cut for Apple, and then basically you get paid based on attention, which is kind of like clicks driving the web. If you read a Wall Street Journal article in Apple News Plus, there are at least 2 content blocks in every story that are links to other articles because they want to just keep you and make more money off of you within the news app, which I think is not great. And then, of course, there are a bunch of
links back to
Apple. The Wall Street Journal articles in News Plus are there are like ads and house ads, and they can be really littered with promos for them. So it's not an ad-free experience.
And these are not ads that the revenue goes to a Wall Street Journal. These are Apple
I think
ads.
some of them, no. I think the Wall Street Journal is driving you to other journal stories.
This is an ad for Apple News.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah. So it's a little bit of both. But the truth is that most news publishers, like magazines, are on board with this. I think they're going to regret it. And if you're like the New York Times or the Washington Post, both of which apparently were hard sold on this by Eddie Q, Apple's head of services, they opted out, and I understand why. I get the New York Times, and its iPad app is great. It's a much better experience than Apple News Plus is. So, why would they give up their customers and give up the money and end up with a fraction of the amount of money that they're getting per reader?
Who did is the Los Angeles Times, and I think they saw this as an opportunity. They've not been seen as a national paper in the same way the Journal and the New York Times and the Washington Post have. So here's an opportunity for the LA Times to get a new audience, a new national audience. So maybe they were hungrier and more willing to give up.
I think so. And they've got a new owner who is interested in trying some stuff out. And the LA Times is good. I mentioned whenever I praise the LA Times, somebody says it used to be better. It's like, look, all newspapers used to be better, but it's still a pretty good paper, and it's got a pretty brutal paywall.
Is the same ad.
So it's nice to see it.
This is the same ad for Fisher Investments that was in the Wall Street Journal. So I'm thinking
Yeah, but if you
this must be an Apple.
that may be an Apple ad, but if you tap into articles, that's under the control of the
within
of
the
publisher.
article. Okay.
Yeah, and that's what the Wall Street Journal is. Unlike the LA Times, the Wall Street Journal is very aggressive in trying to put garbage in those articles to get you to click other articles.
Huh. And you think that's an Wall Street Journal ad because it's in the article. Okay, and then here's all the more links from the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah. So because they want to drive you to other articles because they're basically
now. If I click this, does it get it within Apple News? Yes. It does. Okay.
And then you actually just scrolled past a What's News block, which is them trying to get your customer information by signing you up for a newsletter. Because they don't know who you are when you're in Apple News Plus. But if you sign up for a newsletter,
does this take me? It does. It takes me out to a browser.
They will open a Safari web view, and you will sign up and give them your email address, and then they know who you are. So the Journal is in here with a portion of their content. Because the Journal's very expensive online.
Yeah.
They put a portion of their content in here, and you can see that the argument is, but we're going to be able to convert those people, and we're going to be really aggressive about getting a bunch of cross links so they stay within our stuff in Apple News.
Most magazines, though, because it's a dying industry, are very happy to be here. I think it's a chance for them to.
Yeah.
As Oprah Winfrey said, they're in a billion pockets. A billion pockets, y'all.
Yeah.
They've got to be looking at that and saying, well, we're in 50,000 homes. Let's see where else we can
done right.
Get.
It could be powerful. Imagine like baseball. It's opening day season right now.
Yeah.
Giants
I'm
opening.
wearing my baseball suspenders.
Giants opening day is Friday. Baseball season started last week. I subscribe to the baseball subject on Apple News, and that's a good example where once you're a magazine that has a story about baseball stuff,
it'll be in that.
Ideally, in News Plus, it should pop up. And even if I don't know that magazine and I haven't thought about that magazine, if a baseball story pops up in there from a magazine and I read it, they get credit for that. That could be powerful. It's not great if you're Sports Illustrated and you want people to just view yourself as a Sports Illustrated reader. But if they're able to add more casual readers and maybe even get more loyal readers that way, maybe it'll work. I'm skeptical about whether this is going to be good for publishers. I think it's good for readers, although the app is confusing, and I hope Apple is redesigning it for this fall.
Is this all curated by humans? Is this Apple's editorial?
No, I mean, some of it is curated, but a lot of it is just algorithms where they're sweeping up a bunch of articles tagged as baseball and showing them to you.
Yeah.
Their top pages where they've got like top stories is mostly where the curation is going on, I think.
Interesting. Okay. And the subscription deal is very similar to Texture, which is the company Apple bought last year to give them this News Plus news magazine
So
stand.
$10 a month. They say that there are 300 magazines in there.
Yeah.
Federico Viticci and Max Stories counted
every
them.
One of them.
And it turns out about half of them are in Apple News format, which means you read them on your iPhone. I thought it was interesting that Apple demoed Apple News on an iPhone because they really want to get across that you can read this stuff on an iPhone. However, half of those 300 magazines are still just basically dropping a PDF.
So if we look at this, which is not an Apple format, the only way to read this is, as in the old Texture, and I'll expand it out, is scrolling through a PDF. Basically. And you can zoom in. Sometimes you can't, not all of them. But
that stuff's definitely not going to get surfaced in your subject areas and stuff, right?
Because they don't even have the article.
It's just a PDF.
They just have a file. Yeah.
But then other magazines like, Sports Illustrated and Wired, and there are lots of others.
The good-looking ones,
they are using the Apple News format, which is more like a web page. And
so it starts with an Apple kind of table of contents, which is live. It's clickable,
and all those articles are not PDFs. They look like kind of
they're
pretty
nice,
reader.
And they even have video in them and other.
Yeah, so
features.
about half, about 150-ish magazines are in the Apple News format, plus the Wall Street Journal and the LA Times, and some premium content stuff from people like TechCrunch.
My experience has been, as I just did with this Architectural Digest, that if you go to the front page of it and scroll down, you'll get the Apple format. But in many cases, if you hit the front page and swipe right, how did I do that? I did it a second ago. Maybe I have to. I was able to get to there we
magazine?
Go to what is I think this is
that's
the
still
Apple thing.
News.
Okay, so in some cases it seems like I can get to the PDF even if they've done some Apple formatting. I presume Apple is trying to work with all these publications to put it in the Apple format.
As somebody who worked in magazines for a long time, the challenge is that's
not
an
their
investment.
workflow.
So you've got to figure out a way to get your text into Apple's format, which is not press a button. It takes time. It takes resources to set it up. And then somebody on your staff, one of your designers probably, has to spend time every issue exporting it out to Apple News format.
Do you think Apple's working with these magazines to get them to do it?
I'm sure Apple has provided them with templates and all sorts of other stuff like that, and maybe even plugins for InDesign and Quark Express. But the fact remains, half of them haven't gotten there yet.
And some of the publications, a handful of them, are digital first, like this. This is the cut. And so that's kind of interesting. And they're doing some interesting things. Here's a moving cover, which they showed during the Apple event. I think it's interesting that these digital first publications would want to be in here. I guess it's just more people can see it this way. Yeah. So I think worth $10 if you. I mean, I subscribed to Texture. What happens to Texture now? Are they going away?
I assume they will go away and just get subsumed into Apple News Plus.
I think in May that's the plan. Is that if you have a Texture subscription, it'll either convert but no matter what, you won't be able to get a new one.
But I used to be a Sports Illustrated subscriber, for example, and it's kind of nice to be able to tap in there and read some articles here and there and not worry about it.
I always liked Texture because I'm not going to subscribe to a lot of, like Adweek and Hollywood Reporter. They're very expensive, but being able to get some of that content, Billboard magazine, is great because of my profession.
And I think that's the trick. If this is going to work, what Apple needs to do is find a way to get people who are casual, who are not going to be loyal readers of a magazine, to read their content. Then it's good for everyone. What they don't want to do is steal away all of the loyal readers and have them lose the loyal reader revenue from the people who are hardcore. Because if they lose them and exchange them for much less profitable Apple News readers, then they're going to have trouble business-wise.
Well, it also is the same problem that magazines and newspapers have had with the web in general. They get disaggregated.
Yes.
So suddenly, instead of reading the LA Times, you're reading about a subject might have an LA Times article, but it's completely separate from the full newspaper. So there's some discovery benefits, but there's also the disadvantage of your paper's been torn into little pieces.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you want it to be the brand of the LA Times, you don't want it to be just a headline on Google News.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So there we have it. That is
Apple News Plus.
News Plus. We don't need to belabor the other three announcements, which are Apple Arcade, Apple TV Plus, and what am I missing?
Apple Card.
Apple Card. Well, you know what? Let's spend some time with Apple Card.
Interesting.
That's the one that's going to come out in May.
Right.
And you said an interesting thing. You wrote an article on Six Colors saying it doesn't have to be a huge hit to be a success.
Right. It is not. A lot of the criticism I saw about the Apple Card was, oh, well, it's not the best deal.
No,
if you're a coupon,
it isn't.
If you're a coupon cutter, if you're a deals hound, a points hound, you can find, I'll get this card and use it for this, and this card and use it for that. It's never going to be that. Just like Apple never makes the cheapest computer, it's never going to be that.
So you should go to NerdWallet or somewhere and compare cards, compare interest rates. There, they have a pretty good story about not penalizing you for late payments.
But it's still a credit card with credit card interest rates,
and
you
the
should
interest
pay
rates could be as high as 24% depending on your credit.
Yeah, they say
rating.
that they will put you in the lowest rate of your bracket, but still you should pay off your credit card.
Advantage.
The idea is convenience. It's basically made for Apple Pay, even though there is a physical card.
Yeah.
What they really want to give you the incentive to do is use it for Apple Pay and use it to buy your Apple purchases. And the convenience is, unlike a lot of these cards where you have to redeem your points or get a gift certificate or get a gift card or something like that, they just pop all your cash back onto an Apple Cash card in your iPhones, and then you can use that to pay for stuff. So again, convenience. Is it the best deal? It's not. Is it an okay deal that is super convenient and secure and private? It is, and that's the sweet spot for Apple right now. So it's not unreasonable.
It is secure and private in the same way Apple Pay is. However, Goldman Sachs will get the back-end information, and they've said going to report it to the credit reporting agencies.
Right, but they can't use it for marketing or advertising purposes.
Until it gets into the credit reporting agency, at which point anything goes.
I suppose.
Yeah, of course. That's now part of your overall credit report.
Well, I mean, you can't get a credit card without being part of your credit report.
You kind of have to do that.
That is that they're working. Well, this is part of the story. This is not something that revolutionizes the credit card system. This is Apple making choices among the options in the credit card system that maybe a bank wouldn't. but that Apple will because they're Apple. But they're still just working within, they don't have like a magic box where they can make it do something else. They just set their preferences for their credit card. And so, they don't need to make money on this like a bank does. They need to make money on it, obviously, but their priorities are a little bit different.
So why are they doing it?
I think there's a why not us aspect of it, which is like they've got all these credit cards loaded into Apple Pay.
See how they sell it, though? There's never been a credit card that's smart.
They're adding,
we have the best fees. We have the best interest rates. I mean, that's how they pitched it.
And they're adding features inside Wallet that are only for their card. And that's convenient
again, not features that are unavailable in other fintech applications and credit cards.
It's true, although they look pretty good, but there is competition out there. The idea, again, it's nice. It's good. It's convenient.
It's
is it
ecosystem.
The best?
It's Apple ecosystem.
And you have a Chase Sapphire in your Apple Pay. What if that was the Apple card? Well, you know what? Apple gets more money then. And I think that's part of it is they can make it easier and a little more private, and Apple gets the money instead of someone else. Yeah. And that's the trade-off.
Yeah. Apple makes much more money on a credit card purchase than they do on an Apple Pay purchase. They get a small fraction of the Apple Pay purchase. Credit card company gets more. So that's the other reason.
Right. If they are both the credit card company and the Apple Pay company, they get the money. And the cash back goes on that Apple Pay cash, which means that's once again probably an Apple Pay transaction.
Yeah, they don't send you a check.
Right. So it's convenient, but again, you're also in their payment system at that point. Right. Honestly, I think for iOS users, the biggest news is probably Apple Arcade, though, right?
Is it?
I think so.
I think there's so little we know about it. How much is it going to cost? When's it going to be available? What games are going to be in there? It potentially is. It potentially is.
It does feel like, I said this on a podcast the other week, it feels like the most lucid statement Apple has ever made about gaming on any of its platforms.
Well, it's Apple saying we don't like freemium, we don't like in-app purchases. We think developers, we wish developers would say, and I say that. They
do like them, and they make a lot of money of them, but they want an alternative too, right? Because only certain kinds of games, because they like the money.
Yeah, Fortnite makes Apple a ton of money.
They like
the money. It will never be an Apple Arcade.
They're not going to shut that down, but they also want to find a place for these other kind of like more prestigious and nice and friendly
and
games.
Also especially indie games. I got the feeling they really wanted to core indie games, which don't want to do this in-app thing. They want to sell them outright.
And you get the strong sense that they have people or are hiring people who are going to be like the other game console makers are, basically producing games, putting up money, doing advances on sales.
They are paying companies to develop games
for Apple Arcade. And that sounds much more like what we've seen in other parts of the game industry.
Right.
And honestly, Apple's success in gaming has always been accidental because they built platforms with other priorities, and then people have said, oh, this would be good for games. This is legitimately maybe the first time I've heard Apple say something where I thought, oh, I think maybe they get it, that this is what they have to do, and that it will be a good offering. And it depends on the price, and it depends on, is it $10 a month again, like all the rest? And are they going to bundle all these services together? I'd like to know that too. But like the quality of the games, I bet it's going to be pretty good. And I think that again, it comes back to easy and convenient. Like if you pay $10 and know that any game in that tab is just yours to play without worrying about in-app purchases or anything, even if you don't pay $10 a month on iOS games today, you still might say it's a good deal because you just don't have to worry about it anymore. Yeah. And they'll have exclusives, right? So you'll be like, I want to play this game. You can't. You have to be in Apple Arcade.
It'll be very interesting to see what happens. They are saying they're exclusive, which means that's the only way you can play some of these games. But I doubt any of them are exclusive forever. And we look at Oceanhorn 2, which is a really amazing paid game, Oceanhorn originally. Are they going to offer all the levels in Apple Arcade, or maybe just a few of the levels, and then you'll have to buy? What are they going to do?
Well, they said no in-app purchase in Apple Arcade.
Well,
games.
I understand. So maybe you only get the first 3 levels, and then you have to exit Apple Arcade to play more.
I would bet you that Apple won't let them do that. I bet you that Apple says, we don't want this to be a bait and switch.
Well, in that case, Oceanhorn is leaving a lot of money on the table. But that's why I wonder how this is going to work.
So Apple's argument, is that they're going to be able to judge this and pay them out based on gameplay time. Right. And if people go deep in that game, they will get the money for the people who go deep. So they will get it based on game time. Because you could argue that in-app purchase is just mapping to game time. Like the more you play it, the more in-app purchases you make. I would love to be a fly on the wall of Apple's sales pitch for all of these to all these game developers, because and we don't know. That's the thing. At least there are some models for game subscription services, so we'll see how it is.
Yeah, and they're usually much more expensive. I'll reserve judgment until
I want to hear
we
from the
see.
game developers about whether this is a good deal or not. That's going to be the proof. Are they happy to be in there, or do they feel like they're being taken advantage of?
And it may be that those big titles Apple has fronted the money.
I'm sure.
And said, to get Lego and Oceanhorn and Sonic on here, we're going to give each of you some millions of dollars.
They're going to take a loss in order to go out strong at the beginning with this service. I think that's almost certainly true. Just like it is at the TV service, where there's no way they're going to make those billions back. Netflix doesn't make the money they spend.
Were you at the event?
I was.
Did you see all those stars?
On the stage, yes. Although apparently Captain America was there.
He was in the audience. They kept showing it in the...
Yeah, I didn't see him.
And then I think Jennifer Garner was there. She didn't come on the stage. I think there were quite a few. That big hero Vanity Fair style picture that they did.
Yeah.
Was that... So we have a debate. Was that photoshopped, or was everybody there?
I think everybody was there. We were wondering whether they did it that morning. I think
green room for the stars.
I think actually what happened was they came the night before. Is the speculation I've heard, is that there was a special event at the Apple campus for Apple employees, and that on Sunday night, and they probably took the photo then.
Okay, yeah, because they're wearing different outfits.
Yeah, and then they were there on Monday, and then went perhaps over to the big spaceship.
I'm reserving judgment on both Apple Arcade and Apple TV Plus, because we just don't know enough.
We don't know. Apple TV Plus, are the shows good? That's going to be the bottom line.
That's a big one.
And Apple Arcade, what's the price? What are the games? Are the games good?
Right.
The truth of all these services is...
they live and die by quality.
It's the details.
Yeah. And in this case, Apple didn't give us many, but I think you made a credible point that they needed to do this to get Hollywood off their back, and that's how Hollywood works. And that they had to get to the game developers early and say, come on, you want to be part of this. It's coming out this fall. And the credit card, that takes a little while. I can understand why they don't have it today. Are you going to get that titanium?
I don't know. I think it would actually be a really good Apple Pay credit card.
Yeah.
The fact they have to supply you with a ridiculous metal credit card is fine, with no numbers on it.
It was the only product,
the
traditional product video in that whole event was how we make the credit card.
I wouldn't get it, honestly. If I get the Apple card, I will not use the credit card, because it's a 1% cash back. I have other cards
much better
for when I'm using.
Even
a
if you're buying
card.
Apple products, if you go to Target, you get 5%.
Yeah, or if you use the Amazon card, you get 5%.
Yeah, so it's more. I think it's almost a loyalty card, to be honest.
A little bit, and it's super convenient. I mean, that again, for a lot of people, they're not going to do, I could do a better job of choosing which credit cards I use for what purchases, but it's just kind of a hassle, and I don't. And if a lot of people are like that. Most people are not using, the credit card hound approach to get the most points. And this card is for them. It's not for the credit card hounds.
Let's take a little break, and we will get you the news. We have a bunch of questions. Since we had Jason here, I thought, let's get Jason to answer some questions so I don't have to, because I'm always guessing. Jason knows. Our show today brought to you by Atlassian. If you're an IT professional, you know how important IT has become in this cloud-centric world. IT teams are at the center of the action. And Atlassian is a collaboration software company that empowers IT teams around the world. In this cloud-based world, IT teams have to execute faster than ever. Expectations are high. Stakes are high. The business counts on IT. Falling short is just not an option. So can I recommend Atlassian? That's what we use. You know Atlassian, I'm sure, because of Jira. That's how I first encountered them, the ultimate tool for managing complex projects. But what I love about Jira is it integrates with all the other tools. So we use Jira to keep track of our engineering team's projects, who's working on what stage they're at. Nothing more satisfying than sliding that project over into the complete column. So it's kind of a fun way for the team to kind of keep up on what's going on. And then the nice thing is it integrates with another Atlassian product we use all the time called Confluence. We use it to document workflows, to tell people what happened. That's the other important job for IT. It's not just getting the job done, fixing the problems, keeping things flowing smoothly. It's communicating with all the stakeholders, the other employees in the company, your bosses, your customers, and Atlassian makes that easy too. So you've got Jira software, you've got Confluence. Oh, if you've got a code database, you've got Bitbucket. That is fantastic. If you've got to watch your operations, you've got Ops Genie and Status Page. Both will help you better detect incidents, coordinate response efforts, resolve issues faster, and yes, keep customers and stakeholders updated. Look, here's the deal. Your team can choose a tool that's right for its current framework, but trusting as it grows, they can grow with you. And Atlassian is always growing. They keep acquiring new tools. They got Trello. I saw they just bought another tool. Really fantastic stuff. And the thing you know with Atlassian is those tools are not only going to get better, but there's always another tool coming that can help you work better. And it all integrates seamlessly with Jira and Confluence, so you don't have to bounce from platform to platform. Like all of Atlassian's products, the tools for your IT team are easy, free to try, and right there waiting for you at Atlassian.com/IT. We're an Atlassian house, proud of it. You should be too. Atlassian.com/IT to find out which offerings are right for your team. Atlassian.com/IT. Try Atlassian today to see what IT can be. In the news, well, we already mentioned AirPower going away. The folks at Cloudflare have made an interesting announcement. For a long time, they've had a product called 1.1.1.1, or 4 ones, which is basically modifying iOS. You can also put it on Android to make it more private. So you use 1.1.1.1 as your DNS service. So instead of going through Verizon or your ISP, it goes through Cloudflare, and they protect your privacy. I've got it running here on my iPad. You can get it on the iPhone too. And it's easy as just touching this button, and now all my queries for DNS, every page that I want to go to, all the sites I go to, go through Cloudflare instead of whoever the provider is for your internet. Cloudflare announced on April Fool's, because that's when they announced this stuff. They announced this last year on April Fool's, that this is going to become a VPN. So that's really interesting. This is a free service and a free VPN. What's nice about Cloudflare is they make their money on providing the back end for a lot of websites, a huge number of websites in the world. So what's great about them is that they don't need to make money on this. This is a way of them promoting their services. Plus, they also learn from how you use the internet how to make their services better, where slowdowns are and that. So there's a real benefit for them, not money. So your privacy is protected, but they get a lot of information about traffic flow on the internet. This is the new product, Warp, which will be, they say it'll make internet faster, but what it really is it's a VPN. And if you click join the waitlist, when I joined it yesterday, it was 250,000 people. Now there's 318,024 people. So I don't know if there's any rush at this point, but that's since yesterday. So people are very interested in this, something to be aware of. Quad ones, we call it 1.1.1.1. Cloudflare has been a sponsor. We're big fans of Cloudflare, and I think this is a really interesting product. You can see now that I have turned it on. If you look in the upper right-hand corner of my iPad, you can't see it very well. But Apple's set up in such a way that it says VPN. So it'll let you know, even though it's not a real VPN in that sense, that I'm going through the Cloudflare.
Yeah, that your
ones.
networking is not sort of normal default.
And installing it on iOS is really easy. They give you a profile. That's the way iOS works. And you just install the profile. You can turn it off. And you can remove the profile if you want to eliminate it completely.
Nice.
So that's a big story. Are there any more rumors that we can talk about? You mentioned that Apple is planning to redesign the iPad home screen.
Yeah, this is
iOS 13. Is that what we're talking about here?
I think we are. It's getting to spring, and so everyone's minds turns to summer. And naturally, when you think summer, you think Apple Developer Conference and new betas of new OSs,
yes,
right? Do people think that, or is it just me?
Just you.
And
no, I think it too.
This is going to be a big year, and I think the fact that they've turned over almost the entire iPad product line with these powerful processors, I do think that part of the question is why. Like, what do they have in store? Because it seems like the hardware is ahead of the software here.
Oh, interesting.
And so I think iOS 13, if that is indeed its name, will, I keep thinking that this is the big iPad update. They didn't do a big iPad update last time. It's time. And the rumors are that it will include kind of a redesigned home screen, which is something that when the original iPad came out, we all were like, well, yeah, it's silly. It's just sort of a big spaced out iPhone home screen. I'm sure they'll fix that. And, a decade later, they still haven't done it. It's still just an iPhone home screen.
The rumor was this was going to happen in iOS 12, but they decided not to.
They pushed it back, yeah.
Because this, they wanted to probably do it with the release of the new iPad Pros.
Exactly.
And in fact, everybody, and I'll put myself in this category, I love the hardware on the iPad Pro. I feel like it's hobbled by an antiquated operating system.
Undoubtedly. And I think Apple, I think their original plan was to have these features in iOS 12.
So this is exciting.
And they didn't, and I'm very much looking forward to what they do in 13. Yeah. And it may, the feeling is they're going to do some things that are very iPad specific, that they're going to sort of let the iPad have some more functionality that the iPhone doesn't, and be a little bit different, taking advantage of the fact that they've got more screen space and they've got all that power.
They should. I mean, they've really
USB-C connection.
Look at this grid of icons has been there since day one.
Yeah.
Look at all the empty space. There's all sorts of things. Springboard, particularly this front page user interface, could really be improved.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about a Mac with a screen that size, you've got all sorts of stuff going on. And on this, it's just very simple. Yeah. And I think,
they did make the dock bigger, which
some
is
people
nice.
Want a simple interface on their iPad, and they should be able to do that. I think the challenge is to let people who want more get more. And you swiped off to the widget screen there, and I think that's actually one of the possibilities is this stuff is forgotten off on the side. And some of that stuff you can actually run apps inside widgets now. That's a great feature, but they're trapped over on the widget screen. Maybe I could pull some of those out and put them out on the home screen instead.
Boy, I'd love that. Android does a really nice job with that.
Right?
And
you don't want to overdo it. Like Android, once you put a couple out there, you realize, oh, these are huge. There's no space left on this page. But the iPad has got a lot of screen space. You could make it do it. So I think that's the question is, will they make it more Mac-like in some ways? Will it be, I don't think they're going to do a Finder where it's file-based instead of app-based. I think apps are at the center of iOS, and that's fine. Although it would be kind of nice if they integrated the file system, the Files app, a little bit more. I wonder about that status bar at the top. Could that be more menu bar-like, a little more Mac-like? Maybe they could put some stuff up there.
You're a good candidate for this because you really use your iPad as your desktop computer.
Well, I have an iMac Pro for my desktop, but when I'm traveling, I'm iPad only.
You don't take a laptop.
I don't take a laptop. Right. So I would love to. I mean, for me, the big one is not interface; it's USB-C. I feel like the USB-C port really makes you ask the question, why can't I plug
it's a computer.
Other devices in there? And that's been my frustration with iOS for a while. Is I want to connect to a local file server. I want to plug in an SD card and see the files on the card, and you can't. You can't.
It's always been a little frustrating to try to do computing tasks on an iPad. For instance, if you want to use Lightroom to import your raw photos from your camera, you have to import it into Photos and then import it into Lightroom.
Right.
That workflow is doable, but like a lot of other things, it's just a little harder to do on the iPad. And I expect them to make it easier to do that.
Yeah, one would hope that their whole thought process in terms of where you go with the iPad Pro is where are the barriers that people hit right now, where they try to do something on the iPad Pro and it just doesn't do it.
See, if I were you, I'd be frustrated all the time.
I am frustrated.
Yeah.
I am frustrated. I've come up with a lot of great workarounds, but I have to bring extra hardware with me when I record a podcast on the road because
this could be the perfect podcast device.
But it doesn't let you record audio simultaneously with talking to somebody on Skype, which the Mac does, and it won't read that SD card. So if I bring an audio recorder with me to record my voice, I can't actually plug it in via USB. I have to use a third-party wireless box and then connect using a custom app in order to see the file system and copy my files over.
All those little speed bumps.
And it's silly. That should be as simple as on a laptop. And it doesn't have to be the same as on a laptop, but I shouldn't have to hit all those walls. So those are my hopes for iOS 13 anyway.
Some interesting, intriguing news from John Gruber and Daring Fireball. Bragi, which you may remember made the Bragi Dash. These were kind of before the iPods. These were wireless headphones, one in each ear. They did some really weird things. They were a Kickstarter. And people had real hopes for Bragi in the wearables space. John quotes Hugh Langley writing for Wearable, the site. Bragi, creator of the Dash, has made an exit from the consumer market They confirmed to Wearable they sold its product business to a third-party buyer this year, actually this month, or last month. Bragi will continue to license its intellectual property and AI, its artificial intelligence, but will no longer be creating new devices. So that is a very interesting story. We should all go to the Wearable story. So what's interesting is who bought them and what are they planning to do with Bragi?
It makes me wonder, given that they've got these wireless headphones, who would be the most likely player? I keep thinking
It's got to be Apple, right?
Well, no. I mean, Apple's already they built the AirPods. Unless it's an acqui-hire where they really just like Bragi's engineers
Right.
and they want to hire them. I think the other scenario is it's some other phone maker that wants to have its own wireless buds like Samsung does, like Google does, and they can just pick this team up and then put them on their, hardware platform.
There is a big watershed event coming up in hearables. That's what I call in-ear wearables. Next year, it will be legal to sell hearing aids over the counter. And right now, you go to an audiologist and you spend a lot of money. My hearing aids cost $6,000, and that's pretty much the going rate in many cases. Over-the-counter hearing aids are expected to reduce the cost and expand the market to some brand new companies. I wonder if that's another possibility.
Could be, because this is a place where your AirPods merge with the hearing aid market. And Apple even has the feature where you can have a remote listen feature.
Yeah.
So it would
turn your iPhone into a microphone, which you could put somewhere, and then you're hearing them.
You're hearing them with the AirPods, and that can be kind of
amplified, like a hearing aid.
Yeah. It's an interesting idea. Yeah. And in the long run, this is wearables, right? Like, this is, when we think about wearables, we're not just talking about like glasses and watches, putting things in your ears. I remember, and I think you and I have had this conversation before somewhere, Andy Hertzfeld had a conversation. Was it Andy Hertzfeld? It was one of the original Mac guys. Or was it? Well, anyway, it was at Macworld Expo, and the idea was, imagine the ultimate wearable being a thing you stick in your ear.
Right.
And we all got distracted by glasses, and maybe there is a glasses story there.
I think it's the two together.
And it may be them working together, but there are limitations to what you can do with eyesight. But if you put a device in your ear that has GPS and that has a camera and that has a microphone and can whisper to you, so you're not necessarily like looking at your phone or something when you're walking down the street, like, you start to get the situation where, you can imagine, it used to be totally science fiction, but now you can imagine if you have an Apple Watch and AirPods and Apple glasses and you're walking down the street, that's literally all you need. You don't need the iPhone anymore at that point. And you've got voice assistant talking to you, telling you where you need to go. You've got some heads-up display stuff. Like, you can put it all together and you've got something. And
we're pretty close, actually.
I feel like the in-ear stuff is closer than the glasses stuff,
you
honestly,
might be right.
because it's, all you really need to do is talk and listen, and those new AirPods talk and listen.
You ready? You ready to answer some questions from our fabulous audience?
Ready as I'll ever be.
These are questions that were sent to Megan at twit.tv. She'll be back next week. Continue to send your questions to Megan at twit.tv. And a reminder, if you're going to do that, we love it if you'd record a video. 30 seconds, just quickie. Just put your first name and city at the front. You can upload it to YouTube as a private video, or you can even send the whole thing to Megan at twit.tv because we like to see you. But in this case, all I have is text. This one's from Ramona, and you're going to answer all of these.
Okay, all right.
All of them.
Lightning round.
Lightning round. I have an iPhone 10R. Thank you for helping me, because some of these things are X's, some of them are 10s. There's a MacBook Pro X. I'm confused. With Verizon as my carrier, still did not buy it unlocked. Silly me, but I'm wondering, is it unlocked anyway? Because it's Verizon. I see a lot of unlock your iPhone sites, but I'm wary of botching up my phone. The Verizon website says none of its 4G LTE phones are locked, but never names any specific phone brand. I couldn't get a definitive answer from Apple support either. That's always bugged me. Apple support is very careful not to step on the toes of the carriers, so they really won't give you a straight answer on this. She says she's going to New Zealand later this month and would like to buy a local SIM there rather than pay for Verizon's international plan.
So
the answer is yes, it's unlocked.
Yes, it should be unlocked. You should be able to pop in a SIM when you're traveling overseas into a Verizon iPhone and have it just see it and work. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to call Verizon and say, can I confirm this? Because Verizon is not going to say, no, don't do it. Only use our plan.
They might.
well, they'll
but they'd be wrong.
They might hard sell you, but I think it's not worth it, because I've had it where I've had a phone that was bought full price and unlocked on AT&T, and I went overseas and it was locked, and I called AT&T and they're like, "Oh yeah, well, we'll unlock it, but you have to ask," which is so frustrating.
That
because
is the
like,
case for
that's
AT&T.
That's not unlocked.
Yeah.
It's locked
until
you ask.
say something.
It's so frustrating because then
Verizon
you're overseas and you're
lost
traveling.
a consent decree with the FCC. This was part of the deal, is they're not allowed to lock them. They have started locking them, however, but they say in case they get stolen, they're supposed to get unlocked as soon as you activate the phone or shortly thereafter. So if it's a brand new 10R, I mean brand new, you might check to be sure. But in every case, in fact, for the last few years, the advice has been if you want a really unlocked iPhone, get the Verizon version, because it will work on all the radio frequencies.
Exactly.
Unlike the locked phone, which may not.
Yeah,
Unlocked phone.
So I think it's worth a call to Verizon, because the alternative is you get to New Zealand and you buy a SIM card.
Good idea.
And if it's weird, then you're going to have to be on the phone from New Zealand to Verizon during Verizon's business. And I did that last summer in the UK. I had to call to unlock my daughter's AT&T phone because we thought it was unlocked and it wasn't. And you don't want to spend your vacation time there. But I'm pretty sure it'll work, that Verizon is going to let you use a carrier. Now, keep in mind, your phone number will change if you do this. The advantage of paying Verizon for their plan is that your phone number would remain intact. Here, your phone number will change. Your iMessage will get a little bit weird, because it will now say, would you like to add this new number? If people send texts or iMessages to your old number,
iMessages up completely.
It will not work. So there are complications.
Here's what I would do. The other alternative is to keep your phone number, keep your SIM, but not use it for data, because that's what really gets expensive. You're not going to be making phone calls anyway. Don't use it for data. You can easily get, and I know, and you can in New Zealand, in almost every country, you can get a device that is getting its data from the LTE network, but turns it into Wi-Fi, and it's a little pocket Wi-Fi access point, and then you can have your phone join that. It'll get its data from your inexpensive New Zealand. I call them MiFi cards. They were called that for a while. Now they have different names for them. But that way, also, other members of your party can also use it. Or you could use it on your laptop, your phone, and other devices. It's a little hotspot in your pocket. Yeah.
Although for me, I still do this where I just buy. Also, 10R.
I'm worried about the iPhone.
The other thing
I'm worried about the messages thing.
The other thing to look up is on the 10R is, does the 10R do the virtual SIM? Because you could potentially, if New Zealand offers them, use
an eSIM?
Use an eSIM. I don't know if the 10R uses the eSIM or not.
That's interesting.
That would be another way to go.
Yeah.
It's got dual SIM with a nano SIM and an eSIM. So you should check and see if any carriers in New Zealand
support eSIM.
Offer pay-as-you-go eSIM, because then you don't even need to install a SIM card. You just add a local SIM card when you get to New Zealand.
And you still get your phone number, and you still get your messages.
Because your phone is using both numbers. And you can turn off roaming, but you still are not messing up your phone.
That's the key. Turn off data roaming.
Yeah.
Eileen writes, FYI, for those who do not like the Apple News Plus, I signed up for Magster Gold, Magzter. It looks a lot like Texture. In fact, I read that they used to own it. It has more magazines and even has comics. And, of course, you can add and delete them. They're having a sale, $50 a year. That's about half what Texture was. The normal price, $99. Oh, that's interesting. Magzter, Magster Gold.
Think she works there?
Well, I don't care. I think that's a good
alternative.
Tip. And they say 5,000.
If you want magazines, right? Just give me magazines. That's an interesting option to read on your iPad, really.
Unlimited digital reading. 5,000 is a lot larger than 300.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Eileen.
Yeah,
I'm going to download that and take a look. Keith writes, I just got a new iPad Pro with a USB-C connector. I'm looking for a USB-C to Lightning. A USB-C outie to a Lightning innie to allow Lightning peripherals, like this Lightning charger cable, I guess, to connect. Any suggestions? So far, I haven't found anything. Is there anything that will take a Lightning in, a outie in, and then output a USB-C so you could plug it into your iPad?
I don't think there is.
Converter. That's a good idea.
I was trying to find, and I couldn't find it because it's so small that I lost it. The little thing that comes with the Apple Pencil that turns, that's the gender flipper for Lightning.
You need that for your Mini.
My gut feeling is that maybe it just doesn't work, but there are USB-C to Lightning cables, so you should theoretically be able to do it.
We haven't found anything, but we'll keep looking.
I haven't found it either.
There's no technical reason you couldn't do it. The reason it may not exist is because Apple has very tight control of Lightning, and they may prohibit it.
What I want to do is try it with that Apple Pencil. If you know somebody with an first generation Apple Pencil, it may still even be in the box. They made a little adapter that ships with the pencil, so that you can charge the pencil with a cable instead of by plugging it into an iPad.
And then you would get a Type-C to Lightning cable and put that on the end of it.
Yeah, that might work, but it may only be for charging, because what you need is to make sure that it's doing charging and data.
All the pins have to be enabled in order to get the data.
I don't know if I know of another kind of Lightning gender flipper adapter.
Yeah.
But
I bet you Apple's prohibiting it.
Yeah.
Why is unknown.
I think it's theoretically possible that it could work, but...
Of course it can. They're both digital.
I don't know. It may be that the iPad Pro does not want to emulate Lightning.
That may be another issue.
It may be that simple that it
but
just
you could have a
little
dongle that would convert it into something the iPad Pro
would be
even
nice.
know the difference. Harley writes, I just picked up a 5th generation iPad Mini with the old Apple Pencil, and I'm actually replacing an 11-inch iPad Pro with it. That's the old iPad Pro. I've long loved the portability of the Mini, but I moved on to a Pro for the pencil, the newer pencil. I really like the smart keyboard cover on the 11-inch Pro, and I get why a keyboard cover won't work on the Mini, because it's small. So I'm looking for a great Bluetooth keyboard, and we were just talking about this, that's portable, but also full-size. I don't need the number pad. I'm using a spare Magic keyboard, that's Apple's own for the time being, but I'd like something backlit that also has iOS hotkeys on it. Oh, boy. I can give you everything you want except for those iOS hotkeys. What do you recommend?
So I'm trying to see if they still make this, but my go-to Bluetooth keyboard for a long time has been the Logitech Easy Switch. But the problem is like you said,
the iOS
is the iOS.
keys.
Now most of the hotkeys on this thing are going to be most of the hotkeys on this thing are
what's that? That's pretty.
Yeah, so there's Logitech Easy Switch. It's aluminum
that's it.
and plastic. This is it. Nice thing about it is you can switch between different Bluetooth devices with one key press.
Oh, I do like that.
So like volume and brightness and the media controls are all the same, so they'll map. You do give up like having a Siri button or a home button on this.
But Command H is home, right? So it doesn't.
Yeah, and Command Option D shows and hides the dock, and there's like lots of those things that you can deal with.
So if I'm on my Apple doesn't even have those special keys, do they, on their smart keyboard?
No, there's no function row.
But if you hold the Command key down, you'll see in any given space what the command. So Command H is home, Command Space is search, Command Tab switches app. You could show and hide the dock with Command Option D. The one key that they do have on here that's Apple specific is the keyboard key, the little globe thing that changes the keyboard from emoji to text and so forth. And I don't know if there's a shortcut for that. But hold down the Command key and you'll see, using any normal key, and by the way, keyboard, if you got a keyboard that was designed for a Windows machine, you'd hold down the Windows key, and usually that maps to the Command key.
But you're right, Command H will take you home.
Yeah,
so there's
home.
a keyboard equivalent. But so the Logitech one, which is about $100, they still make it. I love it. It is backlit. The battery lasts a long time. You can use it with your Mac or other things too, because you can switch among 3 different devices with a key that's right on the keyboard. And I recommend it. It will get you most of the way there. It is pretty and nice and reliable and feels like a classic MacBook Air keyboard, basically. It's got a very familiar feel to it, not the new keyboards. It feels like the kind of old classic Apple keyboards. So Easy Switch. I've been using this one on and off for years now, and I love it. So that's one I recommend. Gets you almost all the way there in terms of backlighting and Bluetooth and the rest.
And I would say that, so he mentioned home, so that's Command H. Task switching, that's Command Tab.
Command Tab, right.
If you're in music, that you don't have the function keys, you hold down the Command key, you could see Command F for search. Increase volume is Command arrow up. Decrease volume, Command arrow down. New playlist, play. So you do have some commands as you're playing Apple Music.
There's lots. And
I don't know what happens if you are listening to music in the background.
Well, the media keys, so not on Apple's keyboards, but the media keys on other Bluetooth keyboards will work.
Okay.
They'll play and pause and change the volume and go to the next and previous track. And then the one that I love that people don't know about, and whenever I talk about keyboard cases for iPads, they say, oh, the problem I have with cases in the iPad is that you have to get your finger way down low in order to flip up the dock. And people don't know Command-Option-D. Brings
that's
the dock
really
up.
good.
So you don't actually have to flip up to bring the dock up and do multitasking.
Yeah.
And of course, yes, Command-Tab to move around.
This is a Macish kind of a thing.
And Command-Shift brings up Spotlight. And people don't know this, that you can also do multitasking from inside Spotlight. So...
Command-Space, not Command-Shift.
Oh, sorry, Command-Space, yes.
Yeah.
And you can drag right out of the Siri suggestions and do multitasking that way too. So there's lots of ways to use the keyboard with iPad.
I don't think you need dedicated keys. I think you pretty much do everything you want.
What I miss when I don't have dedicated keys, like on the Apple key, is I miss being able to adjust the volume and the brightness on the fly.
Right.
I don't like having to take my hands up and go to Control Center and flip around when I could just go down, 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 with volume or brightness.
Now
so
we're waiting
like
for the new Bridge keyboard for the iPad Pros.
Yes.
That won't work, of course, with your Mini, but you've played with it. I know you played with the prototype.
I played with the
Does that have all those keys on it?
It does. It has a whole row, and it does actually have a home key and a Siri key, as well as all of the other control keys.
I pre-ordered it, so I should be getting it pretty soon.
And the nice thing is basically it makes your iPad a laptop when you want it to be, but because it's only got these two clips at the bottom, you can slide it in. It's a laptop. Slide it out. It's not a laptop anymore. And Apple doesn't make a convertible laptop, right? So if you want an Apple product that's a convertible laptop, the Bridge keyboard and the iPad or the smart
the
keyboard
Bridge
Folio.
keyboard, the iPad, and iOS 13.
Oh man,
we hope.
let us hope. We live in hope.
Please, Mr. Cook, please. All right, get your app cap ready. Our picks of the week coming up in just a bit. But first, a word from our sponsor. How many domain names do you own, Jason? Every time I talk to a geek.
Oh boy, too many.
It's probably dozens.
I have ordered a domain name during a podcast where we made an inside joke.
And you went, oh, quick! I got to register.
By the end of the podcast, it was live. Yeah.
That's why I use Hover, because it is the fastest way to register a domain name. You go to those other guys, and you got to go through 20 pages of upsells before you can own the domain name. And I'm always a little suspicious because sometimes by the time you get to buy the name, it's already been registered by somebody else. I have so many domain names. I love it because it's affordable. It's easy to do on Hover, and I find ways to use them. Hover has a very powerful, easy-to-use DNS interface. So, for instance, I bought Leo.ist last year, just thinking, well, Leoist, I'll probably use that for something. I do now. That's a shortener for sites that I want to give out, like Leo.ist/blog is my blog, or blog.leo.ist. So, and I do that through Hover. That's all built in. Hover has over 400 domain extensions to choose from. Not just IST. I've got .ninja, .pizza, .republican, .democrat. There's 400 of them. One that I've been using, and I have, leolaporte.me, is a very good domain for a resume, a portfolio, for showing yourself off. I think teenagers, if a kid hits 13, they got to have a website so that through high school they can post stuff up, their best stuff, so that when people search for you, you find that, not something some jerk posted. So .me would be a really good gift to a kid turning 13. Now you are a man. Now you are a woman. Now you have a .me domain with your name attached. It's a great extension to show the best of you. And right now is a great time to get it from Hover. Best-in-class customer support team. No upsells. You do get Who Has Privacy automatically. That's just part of the deal. A very clean and easy-to-use interface. Personalized email to match your domain to further support your online identity. That's another thing everybody should do. Get the familyname.me, or you can get the familyname.email. So you could have your own email domain that never changes, and Hover will forward it to whoever you want, or they'll store it for you. They have actually the most affordable email service I've ever seen. So this year, find a domain name for your passion at hover.com/twit. You'll get 10% off your first purchase for any domain extension for the entire first year if you go to that special URL, hover.com/twit. twit. 10% off your domain for a full year. Nice deal. And if you use that, they know you saw it here, which is nice for us. And, of course, you get a little benefit, too. Thank you, Hover, for your support. Thank you for your support of iOS Today. Hover.com/twit. That's where you should be buying all your domain names. I'm just saying. That's where I get all mine. Now, Jason, don your cap. Because it's app cap time.
Baseball season.
Today, we actually are wearing our caps. That must be an ancient Giants cap.
It's not that old.
Really? That's the old colors.
Yeah. Well, they'll sell you a baseball cap.
It's a vintage.
In any color now.
Yeah, it's a vintage.
Really.
I have a black, all black with the black SF and everything. I really like that. But this is my Petaluma Little League cap. This is from their World Series year, 2012. Little League World Series in Williamsport, PA. They were the Petaluma Little League, Nationals Little League, Western Regional Champions.
Nice.
Went all the way to Williamsport. So whenever I need good luck, I wear my Little League
All right.
cap.
Well, we're going to have good luck then.
We wear our caps because it rhymes with apps, and we're about to show you our favorite apps of the week. You never get to do this, so I'm going
I do
to let
never
you
get to do
start.
this. All right. Shortcuts got an update. This is Apple. It's from a little
Shortcuts.
scrappy developer called Apple Incorporated.
Well, it was from another company, Workflow, for a while.
It was, and it is still in the App Store. It is not auto-installed on your system.
So I didn't know we got an update. What's new?
So lots of new stuff in there, some bug fixes and other stuff too. But I think the best part about it is support for notes. So you can append to specific notes and pull things out of notes and make new notes in the Apple Notes app, which makes it's really nice because it enables a whole bunch of shortcuts involving very quickly writing or saying something and having it added to a note. Like it could be a running tally with a husband and a wife. It could be a running tally with kids. It could be a shopping list, whatever. And I actually used a shortcut from Mac Stories. If you don't know about this, if you're intimidated by writing your own shortcuts, how about this?
Frederico's got, he's the king. He's the king of
He's
shortcuts.
got so many shortcuts, and you can just tap and install them, which is what I did. I have a great one called Append to Note here, and you can put this in the widget area if you want, and so you can get to it without even launching the Shortcuts app. And when you tap it and run it, it says, would you like to type or dictate? So I can say, remind Leo to go to the baseball game today.
Yes. Deal.
It's going to keep on transcribing, and I'm done. And that's it. And it's just run in the background, and what it's done is it has appended that text that I just dictated, or I could have typed it, to a particular note. You've got to say what name the note is. So this is a note called Scratchpad, but you can customize that to be anything. And I really like this because when you add these things, you can go into the shortcut and you can say to display this in the widget. And when you say that, then you don't even need to open Shortcuts. You can go off to your Shortcuts widget right here, and Append to Note is right there, and I can do it from this screen without even launching Shortcuts. I can say, it's going to launch it just to enter the note text, which is oranges, and done.
Wow.
So people should try out Shortcuts. People should check out Federico's article with all of the stuff that they've got about this because it's pre-built shortcuts to do all sorts of things. I post articles to my website using Shortcuts from iOS. It is great.
I make fake Instagram posts of Jason Snell.
Nice.
This is actually another Frederico shortcut, I think. Snellman, this is your fake Instagram. Look at that, 74,343 likes.
It's all fake.
5 days ago.
And you just took that picture just now.
Just now. So
amazing.
How did that? It's a time warp.
Yeah. So you got to go to MacStories.net.
I love these, and almost
gallery.
Any shortcut you can always make a Siri shortcut, which is great. So
so you can
you can voice activate.
Say, "Hey,
notes
lady, do this,"
yeah,
and then that's
great.
it. It does the whole thing.
I love that. Yeah, if you haven't downloaded it, you should absolutely and play with it. And we've showed you on our previous shows. You can go back and look at those. Some basics of how to program shortcuts. I have one that I send. I'll have to add you to this, Jason. I'm running late. This is for today's iOS Today. I'm running late. I'll be there. Start the show without me.
And then it just runs.
It sends it to
runs
Megan.
Yeah. So they even have a non-interface version where literally you would say, "Hey, I want to dictate a note," and then it'll go beep, and then you say
Nice.
what it is, and then it puts it in a note,
I'm
that's
gonna
just
play with
super easy and convenient.
I have an app that's a little controversial, and for good reason, but it's also pretty cool. And it unfortunately won't work in every area. It only works in a few cities: L.A., New York, San Francisco Bay Area, maybe Chicago. It's called Citizen. I don't know. Are you familiar with this app? It was in the New York Times a week or so ago, and the reason it's controversial is because it shows you a map of your neighborhood if you're in the appropriate neighborhood, and then shows you all the police incidents in that neighborhood. Now, the reason it's limited in scope is because they're actually listening to the police radios and writing down everything that happens. So this is up to the minute. Now, fortunately, it looks like not much is going on in Petaluma, but a man is throwing glass bottles at the Napa Mall. A store on Butcher Road was burglarized of weapons. 1,400 homes evacuated due to a gas leak. A pedestrian was hit by a car. There's a domestic incident in Oakland. There's a vehicle collision on the Bay Bridge Toll Plaza. Life is horrible. And that's what Citizen will tell you.
Excellent.
Isn't that great? You can add contacts to your inner circle so you can get alerts when friends or family are near emergencies.
Oh, great. So you can worry about them.
So you can worry more about them. I'm going to follow Alcatraz Island in case there's any significant alerts in Alcatraz. You can pick your neighborhoods to get special alerts. Invite friends. This is the craziest app ever. And I have to say, it's probably a very bad idea. But on the other hand, it's hard to stop reading it. It's called Citizen, and even if you're not in those particular areas, you can still use it. Just say, I've just added Alcatraz to my community. So
Great.
So, should I see what's going on in the Presidio? Yeah, absolutely. Anytime I'll get an alert, anytime happens in my neighborhood. Baltimore, Los Angeles, New York Metro, San Francisco Bay Area. Add these places. We can see what's going on right now. There's a false report of an attack at McDonald's. After investigating, the police found the report was not credible. Yeah. A suspect was apprehended after a foot pursuit. A man with a baseball bat threatening passersby.
Hey, it's baseball season.
It's the season. That's on Eddy Street. Woman kicked fellow BART passenger. If I have to admit, I'm one of those people that reads the police reports in the local newspaper because that's so silly.
Yeah.
Love those. Well, now you can get it in your phone or your pad as it happens. That is called Citizen. Be careful, Citizen. It's dangerous out there. And it is free, as it should be. Although somebody's got to be paying for all those people listening to the police radios. I don't know who's paying for that. Hey, we're done on this show. Jason, I want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy podcast schedule to join us for iOS Today.
Many podcasts.
Let's plug some podcasts.
All right. Listen to me talk about tech stuff on Upgrade with Mike Hurley.
With Mike Hurley.
Relay
Mondays.
FM.
Okay.
Mondays, sure. Yes.
Yep.
I got download.
What do you do Tuesday?
Download on Thursdays.
I
do TV. That's a news headline thing you might be familiar with.
Yes.
Shows like that.
Yes.
TV Talk Machine with Tim Goodman from The Hollywood Reporter. We talk a lot about the streaming stuff that's going on.
He used to be at the Chronicle?
Used to be at the Chronicle.
Is that how you know him?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's great.
Yeah. And so we talk about his TV reviews and also what's going on in streaming media.
I love talking about TV.
That's great stuff.
What else?
The Incomparable.
Oh, yeah.
Where we talk about books and movies and other things like that. We just posted our April Fool's episode where we talk about a bad movie from the 80s that
never happened.
That never happened, and we made it up as we went along. It was an improv, and it's pretty cool. So it's Star Raiders based on the Atari game of the same name.
Oh,
so check that out at theincomparable.com. The movie does not exist.
Wow. Lots of great podcasts.
Yeah, Total Party Kill, Robot or Not, so many podcasts, all the great podcasts.
And don't forget sixcolors.com.
Yes, my writings are at sixcolors.com.
Colors, plural.
Yes, and I will and I link to my columns that I write every week at Macworld and every other week at Tom's Guide.
He's a busy boy.
Busy. Out of my garage. Living in my garage. So it's great to get out of the house. Leo. Great to get out
Are
of
you
the
going
house.
to go to any ball games in the near future?
I'm going to opening day on Friday if it doesn't rain on us.
Man. Yeah, I had tickets for opening day last year and it rained. We got rained out. So, and then we had to miss it because we were leaving town when the rain makeup was. So
It's spring.
That's what happens. It's baseball.
Yeah.
Megan will be back next week. Thank you for joining us. We
Sure.
do iOS Today every Tuesday, 9 a.m. Pacific. That's noon Eastern, 1600 UTC. You can watch us live at twit.tv/live. Yes, watch, because we do video as well as audio. You can get those podcasts after the fact at our website, twit.tv/iOS. Or even better, subscribe with your favorite podcast application. And you know what those are. There's lots of them. And that way you'll have it ready for your Wednesday morning commute. Thanks, everybody, for listening and watching. I'm Leo Laporte. We'll see you next time on iOS Today.